Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Biggening Corporation. This is our 21st episode, and today we are going to spend some time constructing our basic logistics bot. And what we are going to do is we're moving the receiving functionality to the new bot type from the purchasing bot, which is currently posting any purchase orders it makes. And then once we have receiving going on the logistics side, we will then have the purchasing bots also do some follow-up invoicing as part of its operation. And depending on where we get in the day, we may also do some things around location templates and making there some sort of mechanism around location purchasing. That one is an area of which I'm having a little bit of game balance decision making on. I'm not sure exactly how I want to do things. I'm thinking still that I only want to have two location types, a basic and an advanced, and each will have a maximum capacity, and that will just be how those locations work. And then if we find that we need to have some sort of expansion to that logic, that'll be what location upgrades will be for, and we can introduce higher and higher cost location upgrades rather than potentially having tiers of locations and things. I think that's still the better way to go. For example, you might want to have a logistics warehouse that is an advanced one with an upgrade that increases capacity, but you might also want to have another advanced logistics location that has an upgrade that increases the number of bots for higher throughput. So I think that the upgrade functionality of locations will be a sufficient amount of variance that just sticking to the two types will be okay for now. So that's where we're headed today. Alright, with that said, where we had left off yesterday, let's see, it was in our purchasing bot. Yes, that is currently doing posting, so we do need to shut that off, so I was overzealous in closing everything. So, for the moment, just so we have it for reference, I'm going to use the toggle block comment, and I believe I've forgotten to turn on my little caption program for you guys here, so I'm also trying not to say you guys very much, but there we are. Let's see, so real quick, just because it is of use to everyone to be able to see what I'm doing for shortcut keys. Great. Sorry about that. Okay. Perfect. Very, very useful if you're running demos or any sort of online training. It's an open source little program. Cannot recommend it enough. Karnak. So now we have the purchasing bots are going through and they are creating the purchase orders and adding them to our list of documents. And if they are not assigned, they are trying to generate prospects. Then they will do following additional operations afterwards. So now we've removed the posting that happens. That's good. So we can move over to doing our inventory basic. Now, currently I have all of the various bots with this very limited framework just copied over. And we can look at the results here. So theoretically, it would be doing some inventory operations, so we can compare how we would want things to run. So we can see here that we want to do some different thinking about things. We had our safety check in place for that if a system administrator hadn't set up a bot tiers. I'm inclined to copy that functionality throughout the platform, even though we still will be setting our bot tiers. It's a good safety measure to prohibit a zero tier bot from trying to run. So let's do that. And we also do not need to have our filler result text at this point, which I think is still hanging out here in our purchasing. So let's tidy this up. The safety measure. There we go. I like labeling the purpose side. Why is this here? Just in case. Alright, So now we will iterate based on the number of operations per day. We will try to see if there's any orders to ship or receive for the assigned location. Now, given that, we also, for our inventory basic, if this bot is not assigned to anything, it will not do anything. So let's give the a proper error message of unassigned bot error. Yes. Not assigned to a location. Now, I'm backing up for just a second. If bots throw an error, the error is thrown to our universal error table that a system administrator theoretically is monitoring as potential problems with the system. Whereas this is not really a system fault, it's a matter of the player not having assigned a bot to a location yet. And for players, where they're really going to see information about things is in the bot activity log. So we're going to turn this from an error to just a message. This bot is just sleeping. It's tired. So we don't do exit with our reason code. We set the result text because we, after all, might have lots of different things to that. So we need result text equals, and in my case, I don't need to do string substitute number on the unassigned bot message because of any substitution. But that will also, yeah, actually that should be fine. We'll do that. And because of the fact that I want to for visual clarity, I would prefer to do an else begin end type situation here, but I suspect CodeCop later will complain because result text is getting set and there's nothing else in there. So technically, this begin wrapper is not required. I think it would add to some visual clarity, but that's one of those style things that style doesn't always match across people. I think I read something somewhere that GitHub, they were able to run it through a whole lot of learning analysis and determine that programmers had signatures and it could just detect code based on how someone styled. And I thought that was kind of neat, that we as developers have fingerprints to our style. Well, I think that's really cool, actually. Okay, so now we are going to, per operation per day, attempt to locate some sort of transaction for this location that we can handle. That presents us an interesting challenge that if we have 10 receipts to our basic location and 10 shipments coming out of our basic location, and a bot can only handle 4 per day, of the 20, which 4 does it do? So we're going to have to make a game balance decision here of things that a player should know, that much like our dispatcher has a sequence of which it does the tiers of, or not tiers, the types, it's going to have a preference for how does it handle goods. Does it do shipping out first? Does it do receiving in first? My initial feeling is that it should do the receiving in first, but if we ship out first, then we potentially make more room in the warehouse to receive the incoming goods, which since we're constraining the locations to a maximum capacity, I think that's probably the better way to go. So that means if we've got insufficient amount of bots to cover the operations that should be happening in our basic warehouse, slowly but surely the warehouse might empty out. Ooh. You know what would be sort of a nice thing to do? I think what we will do is we will do this. Let's look for prior to work date shipments. Then we will look for prior to work date receipts. And this, when I say shipments here and receipts, I'm referring to the ability to post a sales order to a sales shipment, not to be confused with a warehouse shipment. And when I say receipts, I mean a purchase to a purchase reception, not a warehouse reception. So then look for current work date shipments, and I think I thought there was a nifty way you could duplicate lines with keyboard shortcuts, but maybe I'm remembering wrong. Okay, so the workflow I'm going to do on this is we will try whenever possible to work on the older stuff first, in the order of shipments and receipts. And that way, theoretically, if a player somehow or another has mismanaged their capacity for the logistics operation, they could theoretically reassign the sales and purchasing bots off to another location, set of customers or vendors, whatever have you. They could basically kind of shut off the incoming stuff, and then our basic location bots will be able to catch up and work on the old stuff first. So that makes perfect sense in a way, I suppose. Okay, so we need, nice and simple, we're going to need some variables here for our purchase header. We could do this by line, but I want to consider an operation a single document. And I think one of the things that we can look at too is, I think in my original specification on this, that there was different amounts of tiers, some variation between how the basic logistic bots would operate. Let's pull this into view here. Thank you, Windows, for auto resizing. Didn't want that, but that's fine. Okay, so we wanted in our balance of mechanics here, the basic logistics bots will ship directly from sales orders and receive directly from purchase orders. And we talked about they will have upgrades that adjust how many items per operation, as well as how many operations per day. How do we want to handle that? Because that feels like a bananas sort of mechanic now that I'm thinking about it. Because in our sales bots, we were going to have more complex bots selling multiple items. So it makes sense that sales bots, maybe the first tier, can only create a single item on a single order per operation. And then as we get more complex, they create multiple lines. I'm thinking about if we have a single sales order with one line versus a single sales order with 20 lines, a fully upgraded sales order bot, should a basic logistics bot be able to handle those two different sales orders as the same, and treat them the same. Treat them as the same cost of operations. Ooh. Well, you get into some pretty wacky challenges and constraints when you start to think about how to balance things. Because if we don't put that into place, the only reason to upgrade the logistics bots is how many operations per day and how much power they consume, which those are going to be upgrade kits consistent across all the bots. So there's no difference in the tiers for the logistics bots. Ooh, I don't like that. So my thinking is that we need to have a per tier multiplier or some such that drives for each logistics bot how many lines of transactions we can do on a given operation. Ooh. Okay. That's a little hairy. Because then we also get into the crazy situation there where if we introduce, say, a new fleet of sales order bots and they're all tier 1 and they're creating 5 orders with all 1 line each, and you get a fully upgraded basic logistics bot that can handle 10 lines per order, I'm okay with you wasting your high tier logistics bot in that scenario, because max operations per day is how many orders they can ship on. So you should try to stick to the same tier of bot. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think that makes sense, because we did the research points per operation to differentiate the tier for the research bots. So I think it makes all the sense in the world for our basic logistics bot, and honestly our inventory logistics bot, maximum number of lines per operation, I guess. Okay. So partly just wandering down the mental corridor, if we call it simply document lines per operation, that can be utilized by our sales bots and our purchase bots as well when we need to revisit those things. Yep. Maximum doc lines per op. Alright. Well, that's exciting. And we can copy this down and copy this. Yeah. Okay. So we'll make use of that for sales, purchase, inventory basic, and inventory advanced. Okay. That'll probably or possibly come into account on the assembly side, but we'll see about that. That's going to be down the roads a little ways. Probably at least a couple weeks. Okay, so maximum document lines per operation. And that'll be tied to a given tier. So do we have... We do. Excellent. We need to add that lines per operation here to our template as well. Now, we never went back and in the template list, because we don't have currently any template cards, we never added the fields for the research per day, so now is as good a time as any to include that in our fixing up. Yeah. Oh, okay. Our field, interesting. Alright, so research points per op. And now max lines per op. Cool. Alright, that gives us that on the template so that we can update those. That's always good. And we also really should see that information, at least see it on our instance list. Because after all, there's no reason to hide that information from a player. They'll eventually suss it out themselves, but there's no value to having that be a secret. So we won't. I am not marking these on the instance table. I am not marking them as non-editable, so that way we can fix the existing instances of the bots that we have. Eventually, however, these should be non-editable. So I'll flag those with some nice to-do. And we'll make our life easy, and later we can just delete the comment. Great. And that'll carry through. So, all good to there. Okay, so now with that in mind, we potentially need a record purchase header. And we also need sales header, which is where we're going to iterate through to try to find some things. So for our first step, we're going to look for shipments that are prior to our work date. We're not actually doing any shipping yet, so let's skip writing our shipment code for now, because we don't have sales orders being generated by a sales bot. Let's skip it. Purchase header, set current key to posting date, and we want set sending posting date false. Okay, so now we're looking at the oldest stuff first, and we want to set filter on posting date to be everything through work date prior to today. Okay. Again, if you're new to things, to do date math, calc date is your friend, and you use date expression formatting. There's really decent docs on that, so just search for calc date and it'll walk you through it real easy. But it does not always make clear. If you're potentially working in other languages, always put these brackets, and frankly I just put them all the time. It ensures that this is interpreted into the local language, because here in Sweden D equals day, but W does not equal week. It goes previous one. I don't even remember. I think it just errors because it starts with V. Okay, so now we're theoretically sorting our purchase header, get the oldest first, and we only want things through yesterday. If we find any, I'm not going to modify within this loop, not exactly, then just thinking, we're looping through the iteration, so let's create a nice new function. You know what, I meant to install a nice new extension that's out there. I'm going to do that in a moment because I would like to see it, but I'll get there in just a moment. Local procedure, handle purchase. Let's just call it handle receipt. That's a bit more accurate to what we're doing, and we'll take the purchase header, and we do not, I think we don't need to return anything. We'll see. Okay, we also, because we're passing around a procedure, we do, Boy, that control to hop through words does not play nice when you show it on screen, does it? Alright, which bot, because we are not getting access to rec here, we have to do the BCS bot instance as a parameter. If we tried here in onRun, rec is assumed to be the table number. Inside of the procedure, rec does not work. There's nothing there. So now we have access to, say, for example, our maximum DocuLines per operation. I don't intend to have any upgrades affect that information. I think that's specifically tied to tiers, and the upgrades will drive calculations on upgrades per day. So even though we had created some functions around ops per day, power per day, and that sort of thing, research per day, I think I want to have some tech tree upgrades that potentially improve our research bots, so having that be a calculated function is okay. Here we're going to be able to just go straight against the max DocuLines per operation. Now, if the maximum document lines per operation, if it's, say, for example, 5, and it's handed a purchase order with 1 line on it, I'm inclined for game balance reasons to say that those other 4 lines are effectively wasted because of the operations per day balance of against the lines. So we only need to worry here about doing anything to the lines if there are more lines than maximum lines per operation. So let's talk what that means in code form here. We first of all, some of the autocompletes, I'll tell you. Most of the other variables, you hit set R and tab and you're all good, but there's a set reservation entry on purchase line, and it's assuming that first because I'm sorry, Microsoft, but you guys and the alphabet do not get along. I have so many problems on everything Microsoft with alphabets. Like, why in the world are all the functions coming before the created functions are coming before the built-in functions? I sort the list. Come on. Anyways, grumble, 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 grumble. Alright. Okay, so now what we can do is we only care about lines on a purchase document that still have outstanding quantity. So, outstanding quantity. We are not doing units measure, so I don't have to worry about quantity base versus unit quantity. Thank goodness. For those of you who are working in production systems, be very careful when you're working against quantity versus quantity base. Be very thoughtful about your use of that. There can be some, you might code for quantity-based calculations, and then someone down the road goes, you know what we should do is we should receive these in pallets, and suddenly your code is broken. So be very careful. Okay, so we want to only look for any lines for this document that are still waiting to be received. So now we can say if the purchase line dot count is less than or equal to the maximum lines per operation, then begin and begin. Great. So we can steal a little bit of code from over here in our purchase order here. We've got functionality to post a purchase order. Well, in our case, we're just going to do the same exact workflow here, except we've already got the purchase header. We just need to set receive, and then the rest of the code is pretty much the same. So We'll borrow this code unit. Borrow as if I'm not just copying and pasting, and I'm certainly not giving it back. Alright, fine. So we definitely do not want to invoice. I'm being neurotic and explicitly setting invoice because I don't want there to be any goof up, but it's not really required. So, okay. And then over here in the purchasing bot, the way we were handling things, we were creating each PO, and then once we got down here and we were going to start posting, after each post call we committed. So that way if an error happened, the other transactions don't roll back. And I want the same logic and same flow here, that in the handling of this receipt, once we've processed this one transaction, I want that commit to happen. So for clarity's sake, up here, I also will note that in the function call, yes, we have to pass the rec. When I call this function, I like to note that this function is a committing call, and that way I'm just being cognizant of that. I think there's a way that we can actually get the tooltip to show some extra info in a documentation fashion. I'm not really sure about that. That would be good if so. Alright. Okay. So, what do we do if the purchase order happens to have 10 lines on it and we've got a maximum of 5 that are allocated? Well, that's going to be a to-do for another episode. I might hold off on that until we create some of the other bot tiers. But what we will do when we get here, multi-line partial posting, what we will do is we will iterate through the PO lines up to the max lines of the bot, setting quantity to receive, and before we do all that, all the PO lines, zero out the quantity to receive. So nice and simple. When we do things later on, I'm going to leave this as a to-do for now. We can just iterate through all of the purchase lines that have outstanding quantity, clear the quantity to receive down to 0, and for each of the lines up to the max on the bot, we will just set the quantity received to what's outstanding. Now, there is nothing in the code that I've written here that will adjust the actual quantity of items per line. So like from a code perspective, I don't care on this purchase line if there's 10 versus 10,000. The logistics bot is just going to go, it's a batch. I'm okay with that. I think that we've already got a lot of constraints around this that we don't have to stress that. I think that will be just fine. Okay. Yeah. What are we complaining? We're complaining about a missing semicolon. Red bracket with red underline. Not super obvious until I look over in the map. Okay, so we've got that handle receipt. You know, it's gonna actually bug me. Let's just do this real quick. Purchase line dot modify all quantity to receive to 0, and because I'm doing modify all, let's also do quantity to receive base, just for safety's sake. I think, yeah, just for safety's sake. I suppose we can leave the declarative comment there. And real speedy like integer. You know what we didn't do as a little safety measure up here? If rec dot maximum lines per operation equals 0. Just another little safety check. Paranoid, but yeah. Well, that was interesting. Managed to delete a whole line. Alright. That way we can't possibly get down here and have that be a 0. For 1, 2, which bot dot max lines per op, then repeat. Huh. Okay. I managed to stumble into an interesting. What template was that? R repeat. Huh. Okay, so I mentioned in a prior episode that there was I'm sure there was a snippet for what I was trying to do, and there it is. As Fine said, So R repeat. Huh. Is there an R4? There is not. Okay. I may go ahead and suggest that. AL Toolbox was our extension that was doing that, and that is by Bart. Okie dokie. I will go suggest that snippet to him. And pardon for 1 second. I don't want to forget that. I'm throwing that onto another screen. So, okay. Fantastic. Now, an example of me going, I'm just going to do something because it's quick. I'm also not supposed to be doing repeat here. For do begin. Yes. And then we just set purchase line dot validate our quantity to receive to our purchase line dot outstanding quantity, and that'll flow through the base values and everything like that, and we'll modify true. That's perfectly fine and peachy keen. So now theoretically, if there are 10 lines on this purchase order, it will go ahead and receive just, whatever the maximum lines are, and we can do the same little chunk of posting here. It's small enough that I feel okay about the idea of not functionizing this little chunk of repeat. That's fine. Okay, so now it'll handle the partial. What's interesting about how this is written is that it will receive the first chunk of lines for this, and then we don't look at it again. So if the logistics bots are lower tiered than the purchasing bots, and there are not enough lines per maximum lines per operation on them, they will slowly piecemeal receive across multiple purchase orders. So that'll probably confuse players a little bit if they start mixing purchasing and logistic bot tiers. Okay. Yeah, we may want to think about how we want to give information back to the player about that, because we are going to be doing a result text eventually, which is a tightly constrained summary of what a bot has done. Okay, so we always run into an interesting challenge here where we can only return particular data types, and we are handling a complex if here where we might say all lines for a given order, or we might say partial and how many. So how could we potentially hand back to our iterative loop up here what happened in some way that would be a useful ticker, I guess would be the way of putting it. Well, that's a funky little challenge. Can we return a list? Oh, that'd be wacky. Can we? I don't think so. So we know, for example, here we've got this document's list of code. Could we return a list? Nope. Not a valid return type. Quick fix. One of the few times I've ever seen the quick fix actually highlightable and clickable, and it isn't remotely going to help us with the situation. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we can't return a list even if we wanted to. That's reasonable. You know what I'm going to do is I am going to return an integer, which will be a little weird, and we are going to move our commit, which now I'm starting to get to the point where we're having to copy and paste, and we're up to several lines of code that's duplicated. Nope, no thank you. We are local procedure post purchase, and we'll var purchase header. So we're going to move our post to a function, as we kind of were leaning away from, but here we'll do it. Okay, purchase post, and in both of our cases we are receiving and not invoicing, so I'm comfy moving the flag setting down into here. That's fine, and we will do the same here. So now we can just say post purchase and our purchase header, which again, there's no rule about that. That's a me thing. That's not even remotely a standard thing, so don't stress if you don't do that. I like to note up the whole chain anytime a commit is getting invoked where it's potentially not expected or buried deep in the loop. At the dispatch level, when we were looking at things, we know that the bots are doing dispatches inside of doing commits inside of that, and that's normal and fine. So for normal for bots, so that's all right. Okay, so given that, we can then here safely exit, and I'm going to do this weird little bit. I'm going to exit -1, and I'm going to exit I was going to say if we partially post this, I mean, it's always going to be when we go down this branch, we're always posting this many lines, so we can just exit with which lines maximum. Okay, so what this will do is if we're going to post a whole document and it's all done, we'll send back a -1. Otherwise, we'll send back how many lines in case we have some sort of need for that. Now, up here in our actual main run loop, let's make a little array of integers. Docs handled. the proper dimensional declaration is in AL. Because I don't think it's, well, it's not called array, but Oi, oi, oi. Okay, to the docs. Sure. And let's go with array. Because we're dealing with integer. Refresh my brain, Al. Help me. One of the small frustrations is that they refer to that as dimensions in okay, that was what I was looking for. They call it arrays. It works a little weird, but it's what I would like to do rather than create 4 separate variables. Array 4 of integer. Oh, that's super weird. Okay, so that's the correct syntactical way to parse that, but the autocomplete wasn't even remotely suggesting it that way. So that's a little funky. And then if we at any point go through different document types later, we may expand the docs handled count. So let's see, I'm looking for, in my case, this is going to be a list of partial PO, full PO, partial SO, full SO. Those are my 4 types. Arrays in AL of this type are also 1 indexed, so 1, 2, 3, 4 are valid, or 0 is not. So what we can do is here we're going to receive the lines handled back as an integer, which we're going to set to a variable so that we've got it. Boy. If lines handled is less than 0, then fully received. So our docs handled 2 equals docs handled 2 plus 1. Else I was trying to debate, is there a scenario under which we would potentially have a 0 lines handled, and that's part of why I've kind of left it open, which by the way we could totally handle this through a case switch type situation rather than else if, but let's just assume that if there were any lines to handle, that I think we can, yeah. Let's play it safe. Well, else if we don't need an end because we're doing that. All right, and now we'll do a partial count improvement. Okay. All right. So there we go. Now we chug along through historical receipts, or backlogged receipts as it were, and we keep track of which ones are partial, which ones are total, and then we'll do the same exact logic down here, except we don't really care about the work date filter at all. So we can skip the key setting because it's already set from above. we don't change the filtering, so we're all right there. And in this case, we can just set range on the posting date to clear it. Now, do I want to do that? I'm going through all the old ones first. If it partially posts the older ones and then we get down here, it'll look at the older ones again and work through them again. No, I don't like that. We're gonna go ahead and say this is specifically get to today's. Okay. Yeah. Because I think parsing through backlogged receptions will confuse people. Why did it receive 2 batches of lines? So, okay, that's fine. And now, from the perspective of our results string of the partials and full and whatnot, I don't care if they're backlogged or current. And now, down here at the end of the loop for our operations per day, that's effectively now the bot did do stuff, so we want to set the results string to something. And we're going to give a new message that is operation success message label. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So that way we can simply inform the user of the full versus partial, and I'm going to confuse myself pretty badly with how I've structured this. I did partial, full, and I did the message of full, partial. That will mess me up. Guaranteed I will mix those two up. So we're going to move that, and we're going to change the code to reflect that in just a sec. Because no, that's how you leave yourself a ticking little time bomb. So let's not. Thankfully, this is all just about string notification to the user, but still. Okay, there we go. Full is 1, partial is 2. There we go. Okay. So now we can set the result text to equal our string substitution number with our success message, and we can just do nice and simple docs handled 1, 2, 3, 4. That way we're giving a complex amount of information back to the user in a really nicely compact way. Even though that's kind of a weird way to build it, it's, I think, the best way to get the info across. Okay, cool. Alrighty. Theoretically, that's a done inventory basic bot. Whew. Alright. Nothing quite so fun and scary as publishing for the first time, like an hour after finishing up your code. But thankfully, the extension monitoring here is pretty good about telling us of any compile time problems. Alright. Now, we don't have an inventory basic bot template, so I'm going to create a very basic one here. Sure. And let's let's see, you're going to do 4 basic operations per day, and you can do up to 5 lines per operation. That sounds delightful. Cool. And now if we go to our bot inst, which in our UI is just the bot list, okay. So we've got our purchasing bots cruising along. We have not incorporated the document lines per operation into the purchasing side yet, and that's okay. And we also haven't updated the wizard to handle inventory basics, so we're going to just generate one. Sure, inventory basic, and this will be assigned to basic 20. Yeah, that sounds fine. 2, and 4. Okay, so now we've got an inventory basic that should chug along. Let's go real quick and fix basic 20, which is currently constrained to a maximum of 100 units, which is crazy. Let's say 2,000. Sounds good. Okay, and at the moment it has no units in there. Now, ooh, look at that. Some caption shenanigans going on. Those are incorrect. Always good to catch those when we find them. Real quick, location list, total stock, maximum units. Here's our issue. Cool. Fix that while we're in there. Okay, so it currently has 0 on hand. It has 1 assigned bot to it. Nice. Okay. Let's make sure nothing in the job queue broke. Yep, thought so. The downside of a heartbeat listener running every minute is that often the job queue will attempt to run while we're publishing, and then things die. So, if we go to our activity log, and we do descending, the purchasing bots are ticking along, doing their thing. Let's see. In our bot list, we're just making sure everything is set before we go. That's bot template list. I'm sitting here going, where's the... Okay, so we know that's assigned there. Those are assigned there. Okay. In our purchase orders, we have anything, location. These are not assigned to location 20. Nope, they are not. So we need to fix that vendor to be assigned to location 20. Now we're going to tick up the game day real quick. Edit. We'll tick it up a couple of times because that's what we'll need to do. There we go. Okay, game setup. Now nothing in our system is designed to react instantly on this. There's always up to a 60 seconds of lag times. That's okay. Just due to the way the job queue works. So on our first day that things are going to be ticking up, the purchasing bots are going to create a new batch of purchase orders open against that vendor that will be open against that location. And the logistics bots are set to run first, so they will not find anything that is assigned to the same location. So they will say they will have nothing to do, and actually they will not report anything to do. So we can, while we're waiting for that to tick along, let's come on over here and oh, you know what's interesting? We find a purchase header, handle it, and stuff goes on. Then we continue to the next thing, but we're still within the same loop. So this is up to 4 operations per single operation per day. So that's no good. So let's, there are probably a few different ways we can handle that. I mean, we could look at, can we increment I and say that got handled, but I'm going to say, I'm going to create a simple Boolean. Activity completed. And up here in the beginning, activity completed equals false every time, force that to be so, and then if lines handled does not equal 0, then we can say an activity completed equals true. Something the bot was doing did complete the task. And we will put wrapper around each section if not activity completed, then begin. So we will only do each chunk of code if the preceding chunk of code didn't do something. That seems perfectly reasonable and legitimate. Cool. So we'll copy that down here, and we'll copy this up to here. There we go. And now we have the ability to detect whether anything happened at all, and also give some results of if that, depending on how that loop went. Okay. So if it goes through one time, we can do real nice and simple here. If docs handled 1 equals 0, and docs 2 equals 0, 3 and 4, then we will give the user a little more feedback of no work available. There we go. So that way we can kind of give the user some feedback. They know the bot is working. They know that they've configured it correctly, but maybe they over allocated the amount of bots compared to the amount of we don't need to do a semicolon. They might have over allocated the logistics bots compared to their sales and purchasers, and so they may need to do some reallocation on their vendors and such. So that's cool. That'll give us better feedback from our testing perspective as well. So now here in our I love this update. Mike was talking about it on Twitter, and he's not wrong. It's beautiful. The page is cached, and I hit F5, and it tried to do a data refresh, which did work, but there are also some changes. And you can see now that some of the invoices came in. I love so much not reloading the page and reloading the data. That's so good. So good. It is much faster. So if you happen to watch this, Mike, thank you. Cool. We should be wrapping up in just a moment. I've gone a little over the hour, but we should be done very shortly. So now let's go make sure our job queue didn't break from the publish, because it can. And it hasn't, so that's even better. I think at the moment it is currently doing stuff. Activity log. Descending. Okay, so I don't currently yet see entries for our logistics bot. That's interesting. Okay, let's go check the error log. Location code must have a value in purchase line. Ah, interesting. Did we forget? Oh. Yep. That is our problem. Check that out. I love having errors. Oh, man. And yep, nothing to post. Okay, perfect. Cool. So, simple, obvious, silly, dumb oversight on my part. We sorted by the posting date. We didn't do doodly about sorting on location and make sure that this... I made sure that the assignment code was set on the bot. Didn't make sure that the purchase orders we're looking at are for this location. Well done there. Purchase header, set range on the location code to the rec.assignment code, which for a logistics bot is a location. Brilliant. Okay, and we don't clear our filters, so that filter will carry through down to this work date. So publish without debug, that's fine. We will probably take up our game date again just to make sure we trigger the bots to do their job. I would love to end the stream on the logistics bot doing the reception successfully and take up the game day one more so that we can see the purchasing bot also doing its job. So I'm willing to spend the extra few minutes to see this all the way through, because then we can declare that bot initially a success. And I want to 3 to go. Alright, and once again, just because we are changing things in a ticking system here, make sure that's still all fine. Alright, so we got complaints about there's nothing to post, which is correct because it was trying to deal with some purchase orders that were not the ones we wanted them to. And we've ticked our game date up. I am pressing F5 on my keyboard. Aha! The bin does not exist. Aha, it is true. In our location testing, our basic 20, which I didn't really think about this, we told it that bins were mandatory. And then we have documents being created without it. We cannot shut off the bin mandatory. Brilliant. Okay. So my inclination then is real quick to go change the purchase orders. You know, let's basic 21. Let's not go too crazy with ourselves here. Let's set up a quick little inventory posting group. Clear filter, so we know we're dealing with a completely clean environment here. Maximum bots, I don't know, 5. We don't have anything to restrict that yet. Maximum units, 2,000. We do have stuff to restrict that. And now we go to our vendor. And you know what I think I'm going to do? I am going to instead real quick check in with my prospect list and come down to yep, once nurse practitioner. Great, that's using an item we definitely have set up, so we'll make that into a vendor. I will open that vendor card up and I will set it to our basic 21 location and a maximum orders per day of I don't know, 10, and a maximum quantity per order, 500, sure. Right now it's just set on random, I think. Let's call that 50, actually, just in case. And now let's go pick on our purchasing bots, our bot list here. We are going to tell all of our purchasing bots that are currently working on other suppliers to start working on our new friend. And we will tell this bot to work in our new location. And then we will take up the game day. Okay, so that was a whole lot of whirlwind setup there. If we descending. Okay, so what we're looking for is 1103. And if we filter this list real quick by 2025, 1101 onward. 1103. Okay, so now we've got the purchasing bots. They have registered some purchase orders, which we commented out the code that gave us any info about which orders. That's currently commented out, so we're just seeing the count at the moment. But that means that success on the purchase order side, we have some new purchases for our brand new supplier, one nurse practitioner, against the basic 21 location. So now we should be able to tick up the day and receive those, and then we'll try ticking up the day to see if they get invoiced. Oh, all right. I'm just sort of excited to see all this happens and see this work. So thank you for sticking around a little extra today. Alright, so we should, within a minute or so, see 1104 tick along. And I see the research and the purchase, but nothing for the logistics bot. There is nothing to post. Oh. Okay. So let's go over to our purchase orders. And yes, I'm a little like, oh, because I wanted to see this work. So what's the story here? What's the nothing to post? Oh, quantity received. Ah, it is trying to re-receive something that already has been. So we also need to filter out the status released. But what's interesting about that is that means that it did do the reception. Whoa. So we probably got the error message on the second iteration, but here we are, 14 in stock for our brand new item. So it's receiving, but it's duplicating its efforts on the reception side. So what we want to do then is we want to prevent it from trying to do the same. Is there a flow field on the purchase header of any sort that tells us if there is outstanding quantity to receive? Ooh, that's a good question. Because we still need to be able to initially I was like, okay, no problem, no big deal, we can just filter on the status because the released ones are received and we don't have to worry about it. And that is how we are trying to handle the posting of the invoicing side, which for partially received items means partial invoices. No big deal. I think that's fine. But we can't do the same flow in the receiving side, because if this had been received at one line of 10 or 5 lines of 10, it will be in a released status, but it does have outstanding amounts on it. So let's do a real quick inspect, because I would love to cross a line under this before we're done. And we're starting to drag on a little here. Do we have any outstanding? Completely received. Ooh. Well, that would be cool, but it's saying no, and yeah, it is. Okay, so I don't think we have any spiffy flow field that we can use. Maybe I'm wrong, I'll dig into that, but for the speed of finishing up this episode, I am going to write a quick little function that is going to take a given purchase header. Let's do that, and we will call this has outstanding. Outstanding. Yes. We will return a boolean, and we will need var and we will grab this. Okay, so now we're filtering on the purchase line, that document type, number, and outstanding quantity greater than that, and we'll exit our purchase. Nope. Purchase line dot is empty. Not. I'm going to flip that because I need to know, yes, it has outstanding. So, let's see. Okay, so the problem here now is we obviously can't filter on that. Okay. All right. Realistically, the way I should handle this is that I should, if this one that I find, my find set, because currently I'm doing find set and then begin, not repeat, I should repeat through this loop until I find one, and if I find one, then activity handle will get flagged to true. Actually, well, that's not too bad. All right, we're okay. Repeat until purge header dot next 0 if purge header dot whoops, nope, it's not a function on our, if it has outstanding purchase header, then begin. Now and not activity completed. Okay. Cool. My end went in the wrong place there. There we go. Okay, so if we'll loop through the purchase headers until we find one. Once we find one and we act on it, we exit out of nope. We should exit out at the loop level. There we go. That makes a little more sense. Okay. Alright. Yes, this is much better. And in this case, we are pretty much able to copy this code down, aren't we? Yeah, which means possibly there's some value to considering a function there, but that's fine. Okay, well, that should take care of our issue of how do we handle the purchase orders that have already been processed and skip over them correctly in a way that makes sense, in a way that escapes out. If I were to have to diagram this little loop at this point, I probably would have a little tough time of doing that, and that's a sign that the code might be a little poorly structured. So we'll have to think about what to do with that. But let's take up our game day and refresh. Yes. We'll make sure the job queue is working, but now we should have our logistics bot tick without throwing an error. Okay, good. Bot activity. Descending. Cool. Okay, that's on the 7th. That's interesting. It's on the 7th, but we have no research for the 5th and the 6th. Did we break something? Oh, that was interesting. When I force refresh the page, I put my posting date filter back on. Okay. Did we break something? Error log. There's nothing to post. In process. Uh-oh. I might have been coding fast. Yeah, that's bad. And guess what? Our job queue will run forever. Yeah, we did break something here. This repeat is repeating until the next record and not activity completed. I don't think that's correct. So if we find set, we'll loop through all of them. Yeah. Occasionally my Boolean ifs are a little, well, iffy. So what was happening is in the background, this was going to just chug forever. Not so great. Okay. Cool. We should be doing alright there. And within a few seconds, we should see that kick back over to in processing again. And this time it should probably complete correctly. We also could easily miss it running because it runs really fast. Okay, so there it is on the 4th. We know our game date is up to currently like the 6th or something. But we're gonna have to wrap it up here because time marching. Okay, games, yes. And we're currently showing the current game date is the 7th. There we go. The game date had ticked up while the job queue was running, so the company info was updated and correct, but nothing was going to tick over. So manage, nope, edit. Okay. By the time I edit this and tell it to go, it'll probably just have gone. So okay, we should see it go in process, which we do, and we should also see it wrap. There we go. Okay, so we didn't get stuck in a loop of doom that time. And we didn't get any error either. Ooh. Bond activity log, descending. Okay, well at least that time it told us that there were no documents waiting. So there's probably something wrong with our workflow, but I am afraid we are definitely well past out of time. So I am going to wrap that up here. But on the bright side of things, we have an inventory bot, and it is chugging along. We have some logic to improve, we have some things to troubleshoot in there, and then we need to start thinking about, we need to sell some of this. We've got lots of merch coming in, but we're going to need to get that to go out. So we're going to need our marketing bots to make prospects, just like our purchasing bots do. Then we are going to need to have support for converting those to customers, and we are going to need the sales bots to be assignable to those customers, and we're going to need to think about how those prospects that are coming in, what items are they going to buy, and how we want to handle that. So I may do some time lapsing in the next couple of days, simply because some of that stuff is going to be duplicates of exactly what we did on the purchasing side, and no reason not to hurry things along. Let's get things going. So I appreciate for everyone who has stuck around. There was lots to get done, but we added another bot type to the family. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care, everyone.